Welcome to the Patel Perspective podcast. I'm your host, Harsh Patel. I currently hold a bachelor's degree in neuroscience and minors in biology and biochemistry. Through that education, this podcast allows me to deliver proper health, science, and self-improvement information to the people around the world. If you have liked any of my podcast episodes and you would like to show support, the only way to do so is by subscribing to my YouTube channel. You also don't really want to miss out on the future highly intellectually stimulating conversations that I'm going to have with our future guests. Today's guest is Caleb Harris. Caleb Harris is a best-selling author of the book Out of Darkness. He is also a coach and a speaker who has motivated many men in his community to overcome pornography addiction. He helps men quit porn and to live a life of freedom and freedom of any kind of addiction. He regularly posts motivational and educational content on Instagram to help men on their recovery journey. So please welcome Caleb Harris. Welcome back to a new episode of the Patel Perspective. Today we have Caleb Harris. Hi, Caleb. How's it going?
Yeah. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, man. Just taking it one day at a time, man. Just been busy, this, that, and the other. The life of being an entrepreneur, being a writer, coach, speaker. It's a busy life, but just taking one day at a time, all by the grace of God. That's it.
That sounds great. I have seen a lot of your Instagram content, and a lot of most you write on Instagram and post on Instagram is really inspirational. And just regarding today's topic is going to be how to overcome porn addiction through different perspectives. Caleb brings in more of a religion and psychology perspective. I bring in kind of a biology and a neuroscience perspective. So this will be a cool podcast episode. And hopefully we can merge all the perspectives together and provide the audience with a bunch of different solutions on how to overcome porn addiction and free porn from your life, because it's definitely captivating. And so, Caleb, my question to you is why porn addiction occurs? Like, what do you think are the triggers of porn addiction, and why someone gets addicted to porn? And as I remember, I got addicted to porn, or I started watching porn when I was as young as 11. And when I look back at that time, I would have definitely told my younger self to just not do it because it's not worth it. So why do you think porn addiction occurs?
Yeah, so like with you, like how you got into it when you were like 11, like I got into it basically because I was a curious boy, because at 9 years old, I basically had been sexually abused. So then like 3 years later, I got into it when I was 12 years old. So I've noticed that the triggers are, one of them is just sexual abuse. So like that's that childhood trauma stuff that a lot of people don't go through. And a lot of people, especially like men, basically don't want to seek out any kind of help. It's a lot of pride, it's a lot of ego. And most importantly, it's just like, well, I don't want to really say anything about it. I'm just going to go forward and I'm not going to really mention it to anybody else anymore. So one of the triggers is definitely like childhood trauma. Also, it could just be the fact that somebody was just bored and they were just, their friends were like, hey, let's look at porn together. And you're like, oh, I don't really know. Maybe not, maybe. And then, to get them off your back, you looked at it so they could just shut up about it. So that's another thing too. So then I've also just noticed is that, when a man's just going through a lot of his life, he's not very successful with women, his job really isn't doing too well, things like that. So basically, or if he's like leveling up in the company, he's dealing with the stress of all that kind of stuff. So porn has been used as a stress reliever. Or for guys who aren't really, doing anything with their lives at all, it's basically just porn is just to relieve boredom or because they can't get with women. So that's what I found out through my studies.
Yeah, so I think the first point you made was definitely a lot interesting, because it's all that psychological trauma that is built up over the years could really play a role. Personally, for me, I didn't go through like any of the traumas. Like the only trauma I could for myself really could be a trauma, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I don't actually know what got me into porn initially. And the trauma that I have faced was losing my dad at an early age.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that played into the role. And also you mentioned friends that would really like, oh, hey, let's watch a video, like how like it would be fun watching this and that. And like it was definitely the most weird experience I had when I was with my friends and they just pulled up porn videos, and it was so weird because it's something that you watch alone. And here are a bunch of guys that who I no longer have hangouts with, which I'm glad, because it just keeps reminding you of those childhood memories of watching porn, being with people who watch porn. And so, yeah, definitely great points. So I would like to add, like, I also like porn is really fun. Like you said, like some people use it just to alleviate stress from work, busy life. And it's also the fact that it could play a role in like people's fantasies. Like people have different sexual fantasies. And it just, the more you feed your fantasies, I feel like the more it just grabs you. You just want to explore more of that fantasy. And that's where the issue is. And from like the neuroscience point of view would be anything that is like hyper palatable, meaning like hyper stimulating. Like porn is like the perfect role scenario, what you would think. And that's what they feed you. It's the perfect, if like having a perfect dish at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And that's what you want all the time. But sex in the real life is definitely not. Sex doesn't even come close to what a porn video is or a porn scene is. And so that hyper stimulating nature of porn makes people scroll to find that perfect video. And you waste time because you're addicted. And the more you scroll, the more you feed your fantasies, the more you'll do it, because how the dopamine system works, it's like you have a release of dopamine and then you have a down regulation dopamine, meaning like it's sugar, like how blood sugar levels goes up and then you have a sugar crash. And that's how dopamine also works in addictions. Like you have a high dopamine release and then you have a dopamine crash. And now you're craving that reward, in this case, porn. And so that is a real issue. And people will say like, just cut down porn like to once a day, or like every 3 days. Do you think that is helpful? Like when
No.
no,
The thing
right?
is,
So
like, you're talking about with dopamine is like the thing is like with a lot of guys that got into it, it was like very innocent, like softcore kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, how the brain works is that it always wants more and more and more. So it starts off with like a little bit of stuff, and then you want a little bit more because basically, all right, well, this is getting boring to me now, right? So basically, I want to see something a little bit more graphic. So like obviously like and from a Christian perspective, we basically say that you have to flee from all kinds of sexual immorality. So there's no moderation to it because you know that you're either with God, it's either you're in or you're out. So that's like the Christianity religious perspective of it all. So when it comes to pornography, I tell people don't moderate it, leave it alone completely because it's like feeding the dragon. The more and more stuff that you keep looking at, the more and more you're gonna just keep on tempting yourself. I tell the guys all the time, like if it triggers you, you don't need to be looking at it. Like you need to be focusing on your purpose. You need to be focusing on staying away from porn altogether. And most importantly, just honestly staying out of the house altogether. Or if you have to go to the library or you have to call somebody on the phone, say, hey, look, I just wanted to talk to you. I felt as if I was going to give into my urge. So, yeah.
yeah, that's definitely the truth, because I have always trying to moderate it. When I was back in the college life, I was always like, oh, I'll just do it like every 3 days and just actually just masturbate and just not watch porn. But like even masturbating is so tightly involved in watching porn. Like you won't even want to masturbate until you watch porn. And so it's it's so confounding and it's so complex that you just have to leave it alone. Like you just have to go on like a 30-day detox, whatever, or just leave it alone. And so it's definitely a very tough concept because you can leave it off. Let's just say you leave it off one day and you think that you have conquered that day, but like your urges will just keep coming. And so how have you helped men in your coaching to like, what if three days go well, but like that fourth day you will have urges. So how have you helped them overcome those urges in the initial, let's say you're doing a 30-day no fap. So yeah, how do you help? What's the best thing to do in that time?
So like I said, like the first like 3-4 days, even like the first like 7 days, like that's what I call, in my personal opinion, I call it the struggle week, because like it's one of those things where it's like the first 2-3 days you probably won't really feel that much, but then after like the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth one, it's like, dang, I need to look at this stuff, man. Like I'm starting to crave, start itching. It's like, because with porn, it's just like any other addiction, you know. And in the world of addiction, it's basically you're gonna go through withdrawal. It happens, whatever it is, whether it's sugar, salt, heroin, whatever your drug of choice is, you go through a withdrawal. So what I tell the guys is you're gonna have to hang in there. And from like a Christian perspective, like the guys I work with who are Christian, the guys I told they're Christian, I said, you're gonna have to pray a little bit more, you have to fast a little bit more, keep social media away, keep yourself in the Bible. I also have guys who aren't Christian as well, which is okay with me. It doesn't matter to me. I have to speak to them for a more practical perspective. So it's like, look, listen, let's just be honest here. I know you don't believe in God. I don't force God upon anyone's throat. That's just not my personality. Let's be real here. You need to start leaving the house. You need to start working out. You need to have some kind of routine. And most importantly, like, look, listen, all the times you be looking at porn, you need to replace it with something else. Because let's be honest, if you don't replace it with something else, you're going to want to keep looking at it over and over and over again. And I'm always telling the guys, it's like, okay, look, listen, what is it that you even like to do? And if they say, well, you know, I don't know, it's like, well, you got something right here. We got to figure out what you like to do. So if you don't have something that you like to do, if you don't have some kind of a purpose, that's what I do with the men that I coach. I try to help them try to find some kind of purpose, try to find something to do. And most importantly, I just try to get them to volunteer. Like there's something about the brain. I don't know the exact science behind it, but it's like people feel better when they're helping out other people, you know, and like from the Christian perspective, we call it serving. You know, we're serving others and things like that. So that makes God happy. Internally, it makes us happy. So I do try to push the guys out to do some volunteer work as well.
Yeah, I don't know what is about serving others free of cost, any service. Like I used to do things for my friends that was like they needed some help, and it just feels good because I don't know what it is actually. I don't know. I wish I knew this because it's a really great thing to point out, and it definitely drives you to become a better person. And that fact that you are finding purpose and you want to be a better person does not really match up with the idea of being a porn addict. So that could really help men a lot. So I feel like you have a great part to play in today's society because the porn addiction rates are totally high. Like I don't have the statistics right now in front of me, but I feel like when I saw them last time, I think Google said somewhere around like I don't know actually, like a million or a few million people visited porn sites every like second or like every minute. And so that's whatever that rate is just too high. And I've also heard that like 70% of the content online, it's just porn. It's nudity porn, videos. And so like that basically means that though you have some sort of control on what you can look up online, you are going to come across porn in a general sense. So how how do you really like control the triggers? Like in psychology, it's the habits, like habits have like pattern
Yeah.
patterns. You follow a certain patterns, you look at something visually, and then that creates a trigger. So how in your coaching you have seen people, like what are some common triggers that everyone should avoid who are porn addicts, what we shouldn't be doing, and what we should stop doing, like even like the Instagram search page,
Mm-hmm.
that's a trigger. Everyone probably knows this.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some common triggers here that you have noticed?
Yeah, so like before I get into like the triggers, I gotta talk about like mindset for a little while, because
Yeah.
like the thing about it is like when a porn addict is always talking about porn over and over and over again, he has to get into the mindset, or she has to get into the mindset of like, look, I'm not a porn addict anymore. Like in the addiction community, a lot of people want to like disagree with me, but I don't believe you should call yourself an addict. I 100% don't, because at the end of the day, it's like if I want to be free from something, why would I call myself an addict? Like every time I hear the word addict, it always has, let's be honest, a very negative connotation to it. So it's like every time I hear this word addict, I say, look, listen, you're not an addict anymore. There was a time where you were battling with this addiction, but you're not an addict. Most importantly, you're free. So that's what I have to do. And then when it comes to like the triggers, man, it could be a lot of things. It's really just the stress, the boredom. I mean, practically speaking, you should just be spending time off of like Instagram, Facebook. I mean, there's guys out here, they like to dabble. They say, well, I'm not really looking at porn, but I'm looking at women working out and bikinis and stuff like that. And basically what you're doing is you're heightening your senses, whether you realize it or not. But a lot of guys some guys just want to play around with it too. And like me, I don't like to play around with things. I cut straight to the point. It's like, look, listen, stop looking at this stuff, because you're going to want something a little bit more. And if you want something a little bit more, you're going to go turn to the porn site. You're going to uninstall the blocker and all that other stuff. So like with me, I tell guys, you need people who knows what you're going through. Because I've known that a lot of guys, they keep this a secret. So it's like, you don't have to tell everybody that you deal with porn, but there's got to be at least, I say, about a group of like 5 people, 5 close people, maybe just one accountability partner that's just like, okay, look, listen, this is the person I talk to when I'm dealing with urges. Like this is going to be the person I talk to, but you got to have somebody. Or if you have like your buddy system, as I said about a couple of weeks ago, like 1 to 100 people, those are just the people that you just honestly just talk to. You don't even have to tell them about porn addiction. I've been noticing that. I was reading up on this book called Living Sober, and they were talking about tips about how, you can sit down, you can get away from porn addiction. And one of the most powerful tips they talked about is just sitting down and like texting somebody and calling somebody. The brain will focus more on the conversation instead of pornography. And like I tell guys all the time, it really matters to you, because when it comes to pornography, like the more and more you stop looking at it, the more and more the images in the brain will become a lot more blurry, which will actually have you sitting down here looking at women in a better sense, and then actually go into the dating field, not having all these like unrealistic expectations of her.
No, definitely. Thank you for adding that point about the mindset, because mindset is everything. And if you, as I said, like if you think of yourself as like a responsible leader in your community, or a good person, or anything like a best-selling author, or like any sort of label you want to have in your mind, and that doesn't really match up with like a porn addict. So
Yeah.
it's just better for you to not refer to yourself as an addict, because it's like that guilt, like when you look at porn and then you get guilty, right? There's a common cycle, and then you think of yourself as an addict, and then you do it more again, because you just keep thinking, wow, you're that tag that you have labeled yourself with. And yeah, that's definitely a big problem. And also, like I would like to mention like the purpose here. Like you said, like purpose is so important in everything. I don't know how people have a lot of free time, because In undergrad, my porn addiction wasn't really that bad. It was like the most bad was probably high school, because
Mm-hmm.
that's where I did not have any purpose. Like high school is just like an a fun a fun part of your life where there's no purpose involved, and there's also a decent amount of free time, or depending on what high school you go to. But um, the more free time you have, the more of those thoughts will creep up, and you have to replace that with something else. Um, and yeah, so what I have, what in my experience, like I the past 3 years, I really had a sense of like shame around porn addiction, and so I started disclosing that to people around me. And so one of the first person was like a close friend, and then eventually got to like one of my family members, because it wasn't getting bad, but it was just like that burden of like, when this will like go away, these urges. I was still a neuroscience major in the college. Like I understood what this is, but that understanding doesn't do you any favor, because it's all about how your brain is like wired. If your brain wiring leads you to do a behavior that makes you a porn addict, then it's understanding alone will not understanding of you that porn addiction is bad is only that idea only is not going to help you. You have to like find help, and I found help by disclosing it to people. And then after like 2 years ago, I started dating, and my girlfriend, I told her one day that I watch porn, and so she didn't like it at all. And so if you disclose it to a loved one, and if they want the best out of you, they wouldn't probably like you watching porn, and so you will automatically stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think disclosing it to someone is the most powerful thing you can do, because people not all people have like money for having a therapist or like a coach. And so I think, would you consider like disclosing that to people, like the first step for even like teens or kids? Because I started watching porn, I was so early in my age that it's just shameful to even mention. And so would you feel like that would be the first step if people don't have money to uh money for help?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest that, because like I said, like I have guys, they told me about this, and like obviously I'm not going to tell anybody, but I always tell them, it's like, look, listen, if you get a wife, as a guy, like you're going to have to tell her. And if she's not okay with that, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, look, listen, guys have made mistakes in life. A lot of us have really just made mistakes in life because there's a lack of a father in the household. Or, you could have what my situation was, because I saw my dad, he was in and out of pornography, then learned my grandfather was in and out of pornography. Then come to find out there's been like this generational curse going on with the men in my family of just being, sexually immoral. So at the end of the day, when it all boils down to it, is that, these are going to be the conversations that you're going to have with somebody. Because I see so many guys, as I said earlier, just living in the darkness. And the truth is this: some guys are able to get away from porn just by telling somebody. And that's one of the like the main things about it, because from a Christian perspective, the enemy wants us to live in like isolation. And there's a scripture that talks about in Revelations how we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and our testimony, and that's how we defeat the evil one. For those who aren't aware of what a testimony is, it basically just means, it's your story. It's similar to what they say in the AA community. It's like the 12th step. The 12th step says, we've had a spiritual awakening. So now we go out and we tell our sober story to other people. I'm not saying you have to go out and tell like 100 people your story, but if you go out and tell like a close friend or a close family, you'll feel a lot better in life. But me, this is what I believe God has chosen me to do. I mean, at first when he said to do it, I was like, I don't really want to do that. But now I've been seeing that so many men have been helped out. I keep going, you know, and I've been able to help out other people because it's like, I forgot what it was, but somebody said something about, you know, when we let our light shine, we give the permission to other people to shine as well. But it's like when you're dealing with this porn addiction and you're keeping all these secrets, you're living in this darkness. It's the guilt, the shame, the fear, the depression, the anxiety. And then it's like you go out in public and then you just probably have a panic attack. And like the panic attack is probably just from, you know, the fact that you've had so many secrets and it's all building up inside of you. And it's like, I can't even say anything. You just start stuttering and you become really, really silent. So I would definitely suggest, you know, tell somebody. Tell somebody.
So yeah, definitely. I feel like disclosing to people is definitely really powerful because it is so important for you to realize like how social, how we are social animals. And so social life plays a tremendous role in our lives. A healthy social life, like having like 2 or 3 people who you can rely on, who can keep your secrets and also guide you in somewhat of a good direction, is really critical for any sort of problems you have. And yeah, so first step, you got it approved for us, is disclosing it to someone. And this will obviously be for any of the problems you have in your life, typically, obviously, porn addiction for this matter. But yeah, so you mentioned that you yourself also, I mean, this is a given, you have been free of porn addiction. So how long have you been motivating yourself, like, to be free? How long it has been, basically?
So basically, you know, I came from a background of just, you know, being sexually immoral. So before it was really just the casual sex. So like before it was just, I would use porn if I wasn't getting casual sex. So like 3 years ago, I quit casual sex. And then a year ago, I quit porn. And like, honestly, what's been motivating me has really just been God, because I just realized is that I have a fear of God in me. And again, I'm not trying to push God upon nobody. You know, I get in like, I will say this, the people in like the Christian community, they do try to push fear upon people. I try to come from a more logical perspective, but that's my style, that's their style. At the end of the day, it really just comes down to this, like, you know, like what is it that you believe in? Like, who are you disappointing? Like, who are you hurting in the end? And that's what God was revealing to me, that I was hurting my friends, my family, most importantly, myself. And just at the end of the day, I was like, I'm tired of living like this. Like, I don't want to keep doing this over and over and over again. And I was just like, this just doesn't make any sense. Like, the way I look at women is not pure. I want them to do these like crazy things that just don't make any sense. And like, even in my past, when I was battling with porn addiction, like there was women I was with, they would look at me. I'm like, I would look at me, they'll look at me, I'll look at them. And it just, we wouldn't even be compatible because I wanted to do things that she wasn't interested in, and it would end up in arguments, and we would end up just going our separate ways. So yeah, I would just learn these life lessons. And like, I just turned 29 a couple of days ago. And like, the more and more I just see these kind of things, it's like, look, listen, there's no need to even look at this anymore. Like, I'm looking at something that isn't even real. It's basically just based on the conditioning, which in my personal opinion has come from like Hollywood television shows and things like that, because I personally believe there's an agenda to basically rob men of their sexual purity and their innocence by using this, because the stats are out there. I mean, the stats that I was looking up, you know, there's kids out here, they're looking at porn from anywhere between 8 to 13 years of age. So it's like it gets younger and younger and younger. And even in the Christian community, there's pastors, there's like saints, all these people out there. But my thing is like, sometimes they want to talk about it, sometimes they don't want to talk about it. So I mean, I think I read a stat about how like there's 70% of pastors in the church who are looking at porn, or 68% men looking at porn, and even the women too, like they're looking at it as well. And like, I just believe, just as the church and like in the Christian world that we're in, like we need to just have blunt conversations with people. Like we need to just be honest and open and just stop acting like nothing's going on, because like there's a mental health conversation that the Christian community, and just in general, not all churches, but in general speaking, in general terms speaking, they don't want to have. And it's like you need to learn about neuroscience, dopamine, and like how addiction works. Like you can't just pray everything away if you don't even know what to pray about.
That is so true. That is just the most, it could be most controversial thing, but it's so important to bring it up because it's like it exists. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if you pray or not pray. Even atheists are addicts.
Well,
They look at porn, and even people in their own bedrooms who are alone who say they're religious, they look at porn. And so, if we don't talk about this, I don't know who will, because it's definitely a mental health issue. And though religion could solve mental health, I feel like a healthy, positive social life and a healthy childhood, though
mm-hmm.
that could be hard to control, could definitely be like a road to like overcoming porn addiction. But I would like to add, like, how I know you said women look at porn, and it might be less than men, but I feel like having a partner or looking for a partner who is opposed to porn will play the most role in your life, because from my perspective, like if someone you love said, I don't like that you watch porn, so I would definitely stop watching porn, because the consequences of watching porn and staying with someone are not positive, because that person would probably break up with me, because if she doesn't like it, I do that thing, the consequences are clear. She's not going to stay with me, and it's so hard to find love in this world.
Yep.
And so how so I feel like having a partner who is strongly opposed to porn plays a, a great role in overcoming porn addiction, because that's how I did it. There are other ways too, but yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's definitely a strong component, because, if you got someone who wants to look at porn and they want to look at porn, obviously you're not going to get free from porn. I mean, on this IG journey of mine, I'm really not even big on like social media, but I had one guy trying to troll me saying, my wife likes to look at porn. It's like, I bet if I asked your wife, I bet she doesn't really want you looking at porn. And I've noticed with women is that women tend to have more of like I think more of like a passive side, more of a submissive side. They don't really want to say things out loud. Like they'll keep things more like private. They're more on like the meeker side. So like they oftentimes will look at porn and try to do things that they see in these porn scenes to satisfy that guy. But deep down inside in their spirit, they're like, I don't like this. I don't really want to keep doing this, but they don't want to express that displeasure because they don't want to hurt that guy's feelings, or they may just really like that guy, but deep down inside, they're in their spirit. They're like, I'm just praying, or just, if they're not religious, they're just hoping that, he just one day lets it go. So it's a strong component if you have someone that just doesn't look at porn, and most importantly is patient with you to get that battle. But in all honesty, like if a man is with a woman who's opposed to porn and you still want to keep looking at porn, I mean, I had one woman, she DM'd me. She was not okay with it. So she said, hey, look, I broke up with the guy. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there for you fellas. It's time to quit porn, or I'm gonna be honest with you, you may lose your lady. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and it's so hard to find like a person who is like loyal, and
Mm-hmm.
because you can't porn at the grand scheme of things, when you look at when you visualize yourself on deathbed, you don't want to be like thinking, oh, because I watched porn I lost like my love of my life, or I watched porn, my mother doesn't talk to me, like I watch porn and this person hates me so much,
Mm-hmm.
and I really do care about this friendship or a friend or this lover. And so it's like that was also like that mindset was also one of the factors. Like it's on the grand scheme of things, like it's just like wasting your time, wasting like probably 2 hours of your week, a
Yeah.
good 2 hours of your week, which is, as you know, being an entrepreneur, really essential. Being a content creator, 2 hours of a week, I could spend time editing videos, uh, spend time recording podcasts, like making Instagram posts. And it's like 2 hours is so much critical in your life when you have a strong purpose and when you have a person who is standing by your side. And
Hmm.
so people who are currently watching porn, you they definitely need to like consider all these topics and just sit down and reflect with yourself maybe every day, every morning, whenever your time is, and like journal like what is important for you uh, in your life. And yeah, so how how did you overcome porn? Like my how did you overcome porn? Is it just through like mindset, self beliefs, positive philosophy, religion? Like what
Hmm.
has played a role in what is your journey? In the past year, you mentioned you've been free of porn. So how this last year has went? Give us like a timeline, like a rough timeline, or what was going on in your brain, what was going on around you, and how did you overcome porn addiction?
So like the thing is like I am Christian, but like the thing is just I started realizing that a lot of Christians just didn't want to have uncomfortable talks. So I started realizing, they're probably not going to want me saying this, so I got to go somewhere else. And I really wasn't following the faith. I was just kind of just doing my own thing. I was in these bars and these clubs and all this other stuff. So my no fap journey, that's the terminology a lot of people use. It started actually in 2020. So like there were times I would go like 90 days, 120 days. So I would just go every 3, 4 months or so. And then I was like, I'm not really feeling all this. And then, around like 2021, that's when I got a little bit more serious, but I would still stumble and all this other stuff. And then it took me to like 2022 when I checked into Celebrate Recovery, which is basically, it was me just giving it a chance because I had actually read a couple other books. One book that sticks to mind is Every Man's Battle. It was like, dang, like it actually came from an actual Christian mental health practitioner named Stephen Arterburn. So I was reading the book and he was talking about starving to sumo and how he used to have like a whole bunch of unprotected sex and how he got a woman to give her an abortion and how he struggled with porn. I was like, I ain't never heard a Christian dude talk like this before. So of course that caught my attention because I was like, well, I need some help out here because in my mind, I thought Christian men don't battle with porn. Then I started realizing that, okay, Christian men battle with porn. I started talking to other men when I got right back into the faith. I started talking to men, started realizing we battle with it, but we really don't have like an open space to talk about it because of the embarrassment, the shame, and the guilt all behind it. So in Celebrate Recovery, there was a bunch of great guys that just helped me out along the way. And like, we would just talk about the steps. One of the most important steps for me, I think it was either the fifth or the sixth step, but it was basically, let God take a moral inventory of your heart, and basically with like mindset, spirituality. I do have a background in communication, so that as well. So I was like, okay, look, listen, like they're on to something here, but I really wasn't too sure what it was. So like the more and more I started attending the program, the less and less I wanted to look at porn. And then it became a lot more easier. I felt more confident. Then I started coaching more men along the way. And just the more and more I just started to like improve myself, the more and more I started focusing on God, the more and more I just went out here and just served other people, started helping out other people, the less and less I even wanted to look at porn or think of porn or just honestly even just give my body to just some random woman that I don't even know. Because it's just like, I believe this is a very spiritual practice, man. And it's one of those things. It's like, I don't want to just be going around here just having sex with any random woman that I don't know. And most importantly, I don't want to be looking at all these racy, pornographic videos and just my mind is thinking about all these things. And I just don't want to feel good about that in my spirit. Like, I should feel wrong about that kind of stuff. And like, the more and more I stopped looking at it, the more and more I started getting bolder about it, the more and more I stopped being so embarrassed. Like along the way, I gave my testimony to a couple of people. I shared my story in front of people. And like before, I was like, I really don't want to do this, but I just said, no, this is what I have to do. So after that, the more and more I did it, the more and more I talked to people, I was like, you know what? I just want to keep moving forward and I'm not going to move backwards anymore. So all by the grace of God, I just been free for a year and still going to keep it going. Because, oh yeah, another thing I wanted just to throw in is that it's always best to just not count the days, but just make the days count. That's the best advice I could give people.
That's awesome. I like that. I like that so much. Always don't count the days, make those days count.
Exactly. Yup.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So what are your thoughts on like dating and then like no fap?
So,
Yeah. So what about dating?
so like dating, I mean, I believe you can date if you actually believe that you've quit porn addiction. But like my thing is like, if you still think that you're battling with pornography, like if you're not even getting past a week of porn, I don't think you should be dating. I really don't. I think you really need to just take this time to get to know yourself because I know there's guys out here, Christian and non-Christian men. It's funny how I meet guys who are Christian and non-Christian, but they still think, oh, well, if I just get married, if I just start dating, I'll never have to deal with porn ever again. And what you're doing is you're basically going to bring porn to the bedroom, whether you're a Christian man or not a Christian man, because you haven't acknowledged the actual issue going on is that you're battling with a porn addiction. And I get it. Like a lot of us guys who get older, like I'm getting older, like I'm single right now. I mean, there's women I talk to, there's women I don't talk to, but it's one of those things where I just realized this, like, look, listen, God has my best interest in heart. You know, if I continue just to serve him, I do believe that lucky woman will come, but I don't want to just rush into something just because I'm thinking down here instead of up here. And that's what a lot of guys are doing. Like they're sitting down here, they're just thinking about their own pleasure. And the Bible talks about how husbands submit to your wives, wives submit to your husbands. And the truth is this, if your lady doesn't want you looking at pornography, then that means you don't look at it. It's not all about you, it's about her. And that's the thing about porn, is that porn, like Lamar Odom said, porn does make you a selfish lover because all you're thinking about is your pleasure, but you ain't thinking about her pleasure. I mean, there's two people in a relationship, not one. So until guys can understand that and like the context, like when it comes to no fap and dating, if you haven't gotten past like a week, or if you just keep struggling, I believe you should just take the time for yourself. That lucky woman will come, but you got to start learning some patience.
You're absolutely right with that because unfortunately, after dating, I didn't watch porn at all because I was just in that, what's it called? Like the honeymoon phase, whatever they call it. Like your happy hormones are high and like you're happy all the time, you're in love. But there was this one instant where urges came up. I didn't disclose at that time and I looked at porn. But then I had to disclose to my girlfriend that, okay, I watch porn. Would you allow this? And she said no. And that was the epiphany, like turning point of my journey. Well, I don't want to lose someone who I love, so I'm gonna stop. And like you mentioned, like this is if you think that when you have kids you'll stop watching porn, when you have a wife you'll stop watching porn, 5 years from now you'll stop watching porn because you will be mature. But what in my experience in my life also has been similar, like you said, like some of these behaviors will be reoccurring in different phases of your life. It's like if you have watched porn when you were single, there's high possibility that you will watch porn when you're dating or when you're in a relationship or when you're married or have kids. It's always gonna be coming up, or like you will always have those urges. But at some point, you have to say no and just keep fighting through those. And when you give enough fight, you eventually overcome those behaviors. And so I think that's a great advice. If I had to do this again, I would definitely not like stop watching porn first and then start dating, because I was so focused on, oh, I need to find someone so I can stop watching porn. But I should have thought like, I need to stop this first so I can get the best woman that I can. I still got the best woman, but it's just that you have to be prepared for your battles that are coming up. And so the best way to do so is by quitting porn, because I've also noticed that when after quitting porn, like my sex life has been become better. Like how I like perceive that person, the perceive a lover, like it's so much different, because my focus, my attention, my energy is all directed towards her and not to some video or not to a porn star. And so this process is highly spiritual, and it's just a beautiful way to like just live life if you really want to chase that spirituality. I have heard a lot about God from your mouth. I just would like to know, like, why in your perspective, why is religion so important in overcoming porn addiction?
So I mean, with me, like I get how like Christianity is like a religion, but me, I don't really look at it as just a religion. Like I've been a part of a Bible classes now, learning more and more about God. And like one of the things that my pastor said is that like Caleb, it's not all about religion. Like it's all just about, yes, Christianity is religion, but it's about just having like a relationship with God. And I know like guys get a little bit scared when you say a relationship with God. I can understand. Like, what do you mean? You want me to have a relationship with a God? Like I don't get down like that, which is perfectly understandable. It's not really just about that. It's about, for me, from my perspective, it's about treating God like my father. It's like about treating God like he's my brother, like he's my friend. So like how like God has helped me out so much is like, you know, you don't want to disappoint your father. You don't want to disappoint your friend. Like you don't want to disappoint. So it's like when I was going around here, you know, looking at pornography and having casual sex and like drinking, smoking, doing substance abuse and things like that. And then when I start, you know, having an encounter with God, having a really spiritual encounter with God, I started realizing like, I don't want to sit down here and disappoint God anymore. Like there's a fear in me of disappointing him. There's a fear of me that's just like, I don't want to keep disappointing him anymore. Like whenever I would like do these things, I'm like, okay, look, listen, like, what does God think of me looking at porn? And like, that's been the perspective that's like always helped me to keep going.
Yeah, that I think religion plays also a great role,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm Hindu, and I'm a Hindu, but I went to a Catholic private school. And so it was kind of interesting, because I would like, oh, I have to take religion classes here. And I would learn about like a religion that's so different from my religion. But like when I took my religion classes, like there was not a lot of different things that I would learn. It's just that everything was in the Christian perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but the philosophy was similar. And if you're Hindu, if you're Christian, it doesn't matter, because like the fear of God is always there. It's like I would watch porn like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Like it would be like I disappointed God because I just watched porn and masturbated, and that I would have that guilt over me that I'm not a bad person. I would think I would think as far as like I'm not even gonna get like an A on the exam tomorrow if I watch porn and masturbate, which did serve me purpose, because what I try that thinking like really helped me of not watching porn and not masturbating, in fact, before any exam. It might be a bias, but it just works out at the end, even if you have like those those biases about porn is bad. Porn is definitely bad because it's like it creeps up in your other aspects of your life. Like for me, it was the big thing about like it's like studying wise. Like I saw a recurring pattern of not getting enough exam grades, like A's, not getting enough A's when I watched porn the night before or even 2 days before. So I would focus the entire week on that exam and not watch porn and not masturbate because I had that fear of like God, that if I do this, God is not going to give me a good grade. And though that was like based on bias, I think it really worked out for me. And just having the person, for people who don't have like a father figure, just having that person, or not a person, having that God, having God in your life really helps you out in many ways and in many of the problems. And it's just like just so beautiful to have someone, a higher power, who looks over you and maybe keeps track like of all your behaviors and actions and keeps you accountable. That is also really powerful. And so what are some of the like the Christian perspectives that you could share today, like that have helped you overcome porn addiction? Like what are some of the specific, I can share first too. Like I was taking a religion class in college, and one of the most interesting things I learned was that like in Christian tradition, it's like for the importance of sex is for having kids, therefore you shouldn't have sex for pleasure. And so that just leaves masturbation like alone, because you shouldn't even be masturbating at all, in terms of that ideology in Christianity. And so I really like that thought, because that allowed me to also think about like how porn is unnecessary and how masturbating is really unnecessary. And so I like that idea a lot, in like the Catholic/Christian perspective. So what are some of your perspectives that really help you guide in overcoming porn?
Yeah, so with me, it was basically just I had to be around other guys who were like on the same like wavelength that I was on. That's what ultimately helped me out. So like I met other guys who were just open about it, because with me, I was just like, man, shoot, like listen, look, there was a time I struggled with pornography, and that was just something that I would say out loud. And then other guys would come up to me, and then they would talk about as well how they used to battle pornography, and then they would just give me tips, they would give me advice and things like that, and just the class that I'm a part of right now is called like First Step, Next Step. I mean, just really just going over the Bible, and basically it teaches us, how like porn is just really just a sin against God, how it doesn't make God happy. And most importantly, like how it's just beautiful just to stay with one woman and one woman only. And it was always like Christian perspective always talks about how like, we want to go out here, we want to give our body to all these other people, but most importantly, a lot of these people really don't deserve us, and it's because we're just bored, we're horny, we're stressed, and just following the ways of the world. But like the ways of the world really isn't giving us any kind of like pleasure at all. And in the book of Matthew, it talks about, what does a man profit if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? That was the one that really hit me out a lot, because in the context of that scripture, it did talk about money, but like it talks about like how we just, for me, it was talking about money. And in the scripture, it talked about how like you lose your soul because of like always chasing the world's pleasure. So for me, it was like I'm over here chasing pornography over and over and over again. In my mind, I was like, I'm pretty much just losing my soul. So I'm over here just losing my soul. And like, I really don't want to lose my soul. So that was just something, whenever anybody would talk about soul, and then when I read about it in scripture, and then when I read about it in Christian commentaries, like Every Man's Battle, Healing is a Choice, I mean, Man in the Mirror, just the list would go on and on and on, and how I would just read it in the Bible. And when I would talk to like pastors or people who were close friends of mine, close brothers and sisters of Christ of mine, it just seemed like when it came to pornography, it just seemed like ultimately, again, it was just disappointing God and just most importantly, just basically making me feeling like low vibration and just low spirits overall. It just seemed like it's just a lot more harder just to connect with not only women, but just people in general.
Yeah, I love that idea of like chasing pleasure loses your soul, because it literally feels like that. Well,
Hmm.
there are a lot of things is probably happening with like neurochemically, like all your hormones and chemicals that are produced in the brain, but like it's also like something spiritually that happens when you over excessively, even if you scroll on your phone too much, like it just feels like you are not present after that scrolling session or like watching porn. Like you just feel like you have given a lot of your energy from your soul away into the air, which was so meaningless. And I hope I had like I wish I had like more of like a Hindu perspective. Like I am Hindu, but it's like I want to read more of like my Hindu books, religious books, and I'm currently working on that. That's one of my projects over the next year, to read like spiritual scriptures. Um, and so I would definitely give you more input and perspective on what Hinduism says, but it's definitely says the same thing. It's just that you are your senses, you have to control your senses in in a good way, because there will be a lot of stuff going around your world, and you have to control your mind. You have to have the ability to control your mind, and you can't just like give energy mindlessly to different things in your life. Porn is definitely one, if you're struggling with porn. And when you're just like freely giving energy to different things in your mind and porn, it just takes a lot of your soul away from what you were doing currently. Like if I'm talking with you right now and I'm thinking about a porn video I watched constantly, I can't even have this conversation that we are having right now, which is going well. And so it's just your soul has to be present, and it has to have this energy at this present moment. And so I feel like all these religions like kind of they have kind of these similar philosophical perspectives. So I really like that. But maybe in a future episode we'll maybe talk about um, dating, the hookup culture, because I don't know if you know Andrew Tate and his controversy on TikTok and everything. It definitely gave a lot of men a sense of fake masculinity, that I
Hmm.
need a lot of women in my life to be masculine, which is definitely not true in my perspective. And hopefully you looks like you also have the same perspective.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're right about that, my brother. I,
So
I agree.
yeah,
Oh,
so many people have
oh,
probably watched TikTok videos of him, YouTube shorts. He was all over, and it it just it just gave young men a false
mhm.
ideology on what
Yeah.
masculinity should be. And so it's just, so what are your thoughts about on like porn and masculinity? It definitely makes you more, I would say porn definitely makes you more like less or more feminine in a way,
Hmm.
less masculine. It's definitely not the most masculine thing to do.
Yeah, I
I have
mean,
heard you talk about masculinity on
uh-huh.
Instagram. So
Yeah,
what are
yeah.
your thoughts about that?
Just to break it down, I mean, porn just really just makes you just a very timid little boy, to be frank. Like it just makes you
Exactly.
a very timid boy. You cannot be in your masculine frame looking at porn. Like I see guys, they always talking about how they anxious just to go to the grocery store, just to like go talk to a woman, just to like do something new. And it's like you gotta be kidding me. Like and this is the problem because I'm gonna park right here for a minute and talk about the lack of fathers in the household because it's an ongoing cycle of the fatherless. Basically it's like fatherless America up in here in the West. fatherless America, because there's no men around. And then it's a man who hasn't been raised by a man, and that cycle goes on and on and on. And that's why I'm always preaching about masculinity. I know not everyone agrees with everything I say about masculinity from a Christian perspective, but they do agree that a man should have a purpose, he should be focused. And if he's looking at pornography all the time, I just feel like people can sense it. Like, men and women can just sense if a man is not confident in himself. Like, men and women, they probably don't even know that you're looking at porn, but they know, like, there's something about you, like the way you walk, the way you talk, like you're just not confident in yourself. You all timid, you all scary. There's just something about you that just doesn't say, I have arrived. There's something about you that just says, I like to just stay in the corner and hide. And that's what pornography does to you, because a lot of these guys, they look at this stuff in private, like, come on now, you're not going to pull this stuff up on your phone and be. I never heard anybody who was addicted to porn or a pro porn talk about it in a very confident sense. They always seem like they were ashamed. That's just what I've seen.
No, you're definitely right. Yeah, it's like no one is really proud of saying that I watch porn. It's definitely not a proud thing to say out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I just blanked out.
We was just talking about like porn and masculinity and just like it's all good, bro. It's kind of late out here, but yeah, we was talking about like porn and masculinity and just like how like guys just can't get right when you sitting over there, you looking at porn all the time. And it's just a lot of guys out here. I believe that a lot of guys just be around like masculine men, and not like masculine men like Andrew Tate, like men who just basically stay with one woman. Like, my thing is, I follow Jason Wilson, Tony Gaskins. I usually follow married men who aren't cheating on their wives. That's basically where I get a lot of my commentary and a lot of my inspiration from, because it's one of those things. It's like, I want to be married one day. I want to have children. Like right now, yes, I'm single, and in my single season, I'm just serving God. I'm just doing the best that I can do to help out other men and just give back to my community. But like, that's what the true definition of masculinity is. Like, masculinity has nothing to do with a high body count. It has nothing to do with looking at porn and just lusting after all these women. It's really just about helping out your fellow man, like ultimately helping out your fellow man, following God, and most importantly, just giving back to your community. But it breaks my heart when I see so many other guys who just, they basically are getting like these, I call it internet daddies. They have like these internet daddies like Andrew Tate and them, and basically they're looking for somebody to be their doggone daddy. And these guys don't care. To be honest with you, they don't care nothing about you. They want to take your money, right? They want to take your doggone money, and they want to fake mentor you so you can pay for their little courses. It ain't gonna do nothing for you anyway, but you gonna keep paying for them because it's like we've been talking about earlier. It's the dopamine fix,
Yeah.
Upon one course, I can go for another course and another course and another course. And then you just like a hamster, right? You just rolling around.
Exactly.
It's sad.
It's so sad. It's like, it's so sad because every so often a person like Andrew Tate will come up, like maybe next year someone else will come up, and they say something really controversial to a point where it almost makes it seem like people needed to hear that, like having a high body count, because that will sell a lot to people. It's a really good marketing technique. I could say that too. If I said I have a high body count, people will listen to me because, oh, how did you have a high body count? Let me know so I can have a high body count too. That sounds really cool. But what, as you said, like masculinity has to be totally different because it comes from purpose, comes from resources that you could provide. Because when you have kids, you're not gonna teach them to have a high body count. You're gonna teach them you have to have skills in this world so you can earn money. You can be a better provider. You can be a good critical thinker and solve problems from your family. No one will talk about that. Andrew Tate didn't talk about that, like being a good problem solver. Andrew Tate didn't talk about, he definitely talked about a lot of money making, but like you also have to learn skills, and learning requires purpose. and you have to delve yourself into like different topics. Like you delve yourself into like religion, psychology, and different books. Like people have to get aligned with their purpose. Like what do you want to learn apart from your job? Like what do you do apart from your job that doesn't make you burn out?
Mhm.
Apart from my job, I like to do content creation, which fills up a lot of my time. So I don't even have even like any thoughts on like looking online for something that's like not aligned with that purpose. I like to hang out with my family, my girlfriend, my friends. So like that leaves no time. And having that discipline, and also having discipline, like if you just go to start going to seem as simple as like if you start going to bed at like 9 p.m. every day, it's like you're not even going to watch porn at night, because most people are watching porn like like what 11, 12, 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. like late at night. If you just start going to bed early and then waking up early, even that could even like help you out a lot. And so yeah, so what is your book Out of Darkness about?
Yeah, so Out of Darkness is really just me being 100% real, authentic about all the addictions I dealt with. I talked about childhood trauma. I talked about me and my dad not getting along, but me forgiving him. And, I didn't mention it in the book, but like me and my dad, like we went through a little bit of stuff. Like when I was 6 years old, he tried to kill my mom and stuff like that. So it was pretty traumatic. But like I said, when I started talking more and more to God, I said, if Jesus Christ died on the cross for everybody else's sins, that really hit me because I was like, he died on the cross for my dad's sins. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to put it to the side. My dad doesn't have a really good memory of it. I think he mentally blocked it out. At this point, I know a lot of people think I'm crazy. I don't care. It is what it is. It happened in the past. That's just the way it is. I talked about how, my mom's death had really affected me in about 2021. I basically just the goal of my book with Out of the Darkness is I wanted to just be real and authentic about how honestly how God just saved me from all this stuff that I was doing, because I was doing drugs, I was drinking, I was smoking, I was a wild boy. I was just acting crazy, and I just wanted some doggone love. So when I got that love from Christ, I just said, look, man, I love myself. I love myself too much not to keep doing this. I talk about a little bit about pornography, and like I talk about social issues that men go through all the time, and like basically just trying to hit home that, hey, look, there's gonna be people out here who believe in God and don't believe in God. But I think we could like agree that you have to at least let people know what's going on in your life. Because there's so many men that I've met personally, they got a story to tell, and nobody knows. You can just tell by the way they look. You can just tell by they're always holding their head down. They're not very confident in themselves. There's a lot of guys I meet. It's like they have some kind of story to tell. It seems like they're hiding something. They're not just. It just feels as if they feel like they can't tell anybody anything because they're afraid somebody's going to judge them, shame them, guilt trip them. And like the book, I had written this book about 2, 3 years ago, and it took me a little while to publish it because I didn't want to put everything out there like that. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna help somebody. And that's the mindset I had, is like, I'm gonna help somebody because people can't say, oh, I never met anybody who's never been through that. And even if somebody doesn't want to tell their story, at least they feel inspired by my story to at least go another day. So that's ultimately where I wrote the book.
Yeah, that's definitely your story. Definitely really inspirational. Very traumatic. Nothing close to what probably other people have experienced, and including myself. So, but it's definitely inspirational. Are you gonna write a book about porn addiction or no?
That is
Or is it?
something that I've definitely been thinking about doing. That's definitely something that's in the works. Definitely trying to come up with a program that helps out men with porn addiction. I mean, that's definitely something that I've been working on. It's just like there's certain things I want to include, certain things I'll have to debunk, like in the no fap community, how a lot of guys, they always talk about this female attraction stuff all the time. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, look, listen, if you just focus on yourself, there will be women who will be focusing on you, but you have to focus on yourself instead of just focusing on trying to sleep around with a bunch of women. So I would have to, incorporate sexual addiction and porn addiction and just give a basis of addiction in general. But that is something that I have been debating, writing about. Yes, that is true.
Yeah, you have definitely a lot of ideas about that. Sexual addiction is also like a big thing.
Hmm.
If people have self beliefs on like they could have a high body count, they're gonna seek that, and that could really transition themselves into sexual addiction. And I'm also interested in those topics because I have from my like when I was in college, I used to always do my projects on addictions and everything. So all kind of addictions are really interesting to me. So I hope maybe you write a book and then we can all read about porn addiction and sexual addiction. But where can people find you?
So yeah, people could find me. Easiest way is on Instagram because you'll be able to find my website, Facebook, and all the other stuff. So you go to Instagram, all you got to do is type in a man named Caleb, and then you'll be able to find me there. You go to my website, you can find my books, you can find me on Facebook, Facebook, find my email, my YouTube channel. You can find all the articles I've been talking about that has to deal with porn addiction and addiction in general. So yeah, just if you just type in a man named Caleb on IG, you'll find all that jazz.
Okay. And how can you how are you helping people? Are you a coach? You take
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, I'm a coach. So basically, if you just in the link as well, you just book a consultation with me, an hour for $60, things like that. So whatever you're most comfortable with, but if you book a consultation with me, I'll basically just help you out right away. We won't have to waste any time. We'll just come up with a plan to get you straight and to get you away from that pornography. So yeah, book a consultation.
Sounds great. Do what he says, and I think that is it. Thank you for being on this episode. I think it was a great podcast. We came up with a lot of insights, perspectives, and solutions for our audience who will watch this. And though definitely it's gonna definitely be helpful. Your input is really valuable to this episode. And thank you for coming. And I hope to maybe see you in one of the future episodes too. And yeah, anything you want to add before we head out?
Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I done said everything I could say. I mean, oh yeah, there's one thing I want to say, leave the darkness and come to the light, man. Don't sit around here just isolating yourself. If you're a man who has any kind of problems or issues, I'm here. Open up to somebody who you're close to, or just say something. Because the last thing you want to do is just be in darkness and not, basically just sitting down here being in darkness, living in isolation, and then you're entertaining those suicidal thoughts, those homicidal thoughts. We don't want that to happen, man. There's just so many good men out here, but man, they've just been led the wrong way. Choose authentic masculinity and reject all this toxic masculinity. Just basically choose the righteous path and leave the wickedness behind.
Okay, thank you for that inspirational message, Caleb.